I'm joined by Paul Moore, the founder and managing director of Rebel Chilli. Paul, how are you keeping?
Good, David. How are you?
Not too bad. Thanks for joining.
No worries at all. Glad to be here.
So, give a bit of an introduction. Rebel Chilli is kind of very well known. You're making great strides in the food world. So, give a little introduction to how you actually got started.
Yeah, so I started making sauce at home in my mother's kitchen day one, very much as a bit of a bit of crack and just to see what we could do because I had a love of hot sauces and really why we started was we couldn't find any good ones on the market. They were either way too hot or too sweet or whatever. So I kind of said, look, let's make it and see what we can do. So it was a bit of a hit and hope, and we made some sauce. Went to the local farmers market with my brother at the time, and kind of went from there and started supplying independent shops and did lots of food festivals and markets. So they were great to kind of build a customer base.
And did you have any food background before this, or was it just an interest in food?
Just an interest in food. Like I didn't have any background, like I hadn't studied or worked in food at all. Like obviously I loved food, but I didn't have any training in it. So it's funny, someone has asked me, like, was that I suppose a drawback or a benefit? I actually was a benefit, because if I had an experience in food, I probably would have approached it totally differently. And yeah,
that's actually interesting, because you think about a lot of people that start up businesses, a lot of people who started up to make money, and that's the pure. Kind of, I suppose you kind of already said it there. You found that the niche that was missing, but it was a personal goal, I suppose, as well.
It was, and like obviously at the time we were like, oh, we could maybe make a bit of bob from this, but there was no commercial gain or insight or goal there. It was kind of like more fun, if you know what I mean, than commercial. So it was a good way to start.
And so starting from the mother's kitchen, when did the decision say, right, we're next step, we go to a better kitchen?
When you ran out of space, I suppose.
Every drawer you opened, and there was Rebel Chilli bottles falling out, kind of a thing, was it?
Pretty much. Like we were taking over the kitchen. And anyway, once you go past a certain stage, like a house kitchen is not suitable at all. You need a commercial kitchen, a proper kitchen. So we moved in, and we moved around from kitchen to kitchen. We moved up to Farren Ferris, up the north side. We found a kitchen there that was kind of not being used for much of the day, so we rented that out. It wasn't ideal though. It was a bit kind of like we'd go through this big old building and get there and carry all the boxes, so it was a bit of a dose. But now we moved 2 years ago now, I think, to the Carrickline Industrial Kitchens. So they're run by the council, but they're fantastic because you book in for as long as you want, and it's yours. So it's great.
I've actually heard great things about that. It's like a hub for startups, basically, isn't it? For startup businesses.
Yeah, it is. And like, so basically, for example, if you want to test out a product, you can rent it for 1 hour, or you could rent it for 10 hours. So it's very good. And it means you don't have to rent the premises for a month, because really I only need to use the kitchen maybe 3 or 4 days a month max. So the rest of the days would be wasted if I was renting it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's not a fresh product as such, so you can have good shelf life on it, I suppose.
Like I suppose it's a fresh product, but doesn't have a short shelf life, as you said. Like I get probably 12 months naturally. Like we don't add any additives or preservatives, but so we can make a lot and store it.
And that's actually interesting. Like you see a lot of new foods entering the market nowadays that are, as you said, like kind of non-preservative, maybe gluten-free, missing this, missing that. But I think there's a big emphasis on making sure that the quality and the flavor and the taste is still there, because some of the, before, a lot of that kind of stuff would have added to the flavor. Was that an important thing for you starting out, that, we'll make this as healthy and as not limiting to different categories, I suppose? Was that an important thing at the start?
The most important thing was just firstly that it tasted great and that it was a bit different. So like we wanted the flavors, we didn't want it to be too salty or too sweet, but we wanted to have really good fresh flavor. And then we naturally kind of fell into then it actually is gluten-free. For example, 7 of 6 of our products are naturally gluten-free. They're vegans, but they're all vegan. So we kind of fell into those categories where I think you're right. Lots of people might set out to say, I want to create a vegan gluten-free sauce, whereas we started the other way. We started with the product, and as you said, you want to make sure the product is actually really good first before you start trying to make it fit into certain categories.
And you mentioned there, so so starting out, you kind of went down the farmer market route, selling it that way. I think that's personally from dealing with food myself with different businesses and stuff. I think that's an important avenue for a lot of businesses to go, whether it's that or whether it's actually getting on the ground. If you do go to the bigger boys in terms of retail, getting on the ground and doing tastings and stuff, because I think a lot of people miss out on that customer interaction, I suppose. So by you getting out in the farmer market, I suppose you were getting to see who your customers were, you were getting to see your audience profile, but also you were probably getting the feedback the following week when they came back and said, I tried it. So was that important to you at the start?
Oh, definitely. No, I totally agree. I think for any, like, and I've been asked a lot by food companies starting out, like, what's the best way to start or where should we start? I always tell them, like, start at the farmer's market, because as you said, you get feedback, you get interaction with customers, you get people's reactions. For example, like, a big part of our stall before at a festival is our market is the person actually tasting the sauce in front of us and saying, oh, I like that, or I don't like that, but I like this one. And initially when we were starting out, like, that gives you great feedback. It allows you to kind of tweak your products as well. If loads of people don't like one, you can make a change to it. Or if people love a certain product, it's a firm favorite then, so I think it's brilliant, and you get to work with other businesses and you talk to people, so it's fantastic, and you get money as well. Like, as in, everyone's talking about cash is king. Like, farmers markets are great for that, for getting a bit of sales, and it builds your confidence as well, because I suppose it hones your selling ability as well. Like, it's not that may sound too commercial, but, like, as in, at the end of the day, you're there to meet people and introduce them to their products and to sell it as well. So I think they're crucial to any business starting out.
You kind of mentioned two things there. So it's not for years I worked in bars, and you either survive or you don't in terms of customer service. You'll either be that quiet barman or you'll be well able for the chat and well able to handle the lad sitting at the end of the bar. It's very similar in farmers markets, that you have that chat and you have to have the banter, and
totally.
Whatever you do, as you already mentioned, in terms of a brand or a logo behind you, or brilliant when you get them to taste the product and it actually stands up to what you're saying, but that person is absolutely vital, that right character selling it, and that becomes part of your brand and that personality. So not every business has that, whether it's a business owner that's able to stand up and be charismatic or chatty or fit into the style. Did you find I can do this, or was it, at the start we get someone else? What way were you thinking at the start?
And I suppose I was always myself. I kind of, like, my way of looking at it is that if I'm trying to sell a product or get behind the product, I have to be able to sell it then. So, like, it was always like that starting out, and then as we were, like, growing, got busier, I might get, say, a friend in, but that was when we were, like, as in, when we were very busy, we had the lads over in the house putting the labels on, doing up the cases, helping out the farmers markets. So I think that's crucial as well, because you want to make sure that people, if you're not there, the people who are there instead of you are able to sell well enough. And it's not for everyone. Like, it is hard, because essentially, okay, you're standing in the market, but you're talking to people, as you said, you're having a bit of crack, but also there's people there who are, they may be more hard-nosed and want to haggle with you, for example, and, like, that can make people feel uncomfortable. But it's just a small little thing that it's a great thing to get good at in a farmer's market sense. But I always think that you have to be behind, like, you have to be the face behind the brand or the company or whatever one you call it. Yeah. Because that's what people buy into at the end of the day. Like, people obviously want to see Rebel Chilli succeed, but if I meet you at the farmer's market and you say, geez, that fellow was sound, or I really like his products, it'll make you want to support Rebel Chilli even more going forward.
Yeah, and no one will be able to talk, no matter how much you pay someone, no matter how much you train someone. No one's able to talk about the product like you can talk about the product, because totally. You know the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it.
Exactly. And I like, I suppose initially I kind of thought that, like, oh, I'd be able to train someone up to the same as me, but then I quickly realized you can't, because unless it's your own thing, no one cares about it as much as you, and that's just natural. Like, if I went to work for someone else, even if I loved their company, I cannot possibly care for it as much as the person who set it up, because as you said, they've gone through every little high and low along the way. Like,
so, and looking back as the whole picture of starting out the business, was there a couple of obstacles that you had to overcome, or looking back now thinking, I wish someone told me about that, or I wish I avoided that now, or someone listening that maybe is thinking of starting up a business, what kind of things do they need to look out for?
like I suppose the hardest thing for me, I was doing it in college up until I did BIS in college, and then I finished in 2014. So I went full time then, pretty much when I graduated. Whereas before I'd been part time. That was quite a jump, because before it had been like weekends, farmers markets, the odds, delivery here and there. Where
Late
then it went,
nights.
yeah. So then it went to totally all my focus being on the job Monday to Saturday. So that was quite a big jump. So I probably could have done with some help around that. But I suppose then it meant I learned the hard way. Then I learned quite quickly. One thing I would say as well that definitely would have helped is to put more of a structure on the business. Like, I very much worked ad hoc. Like, I might wake up and be like, okay, I'll work on this today, and I'll do this in the afternoon, I'll do something else then, or whatever came to me, which is fine. But like, I think if 20% or 10% of your time is doing that, that's okay. But the rest needs to be structured, because you just get more done. And I think it took me probably 2 years, 3 years until I really actually appreciated that. And I probably could have gotten to that stage quicker if I had talked to other business owners, but I was like, oh, I'm too headstrong, I know it. So, but I suppose that's all part of the learning, like.
And did you have people around you at the start kind of guiding you, or maybe giving you a bit of mentorship, or just, people that you would seek out advice from? Did you have anyone like that?
Not really. Like, I definitely spoke to some other food business owners, and I got a bit of mentorship from the local enterprise office. But not really. It was very much kind of learning it, but by doing, which is good. But I suppose it would have been handy to have some bit of more regular support, just to guide me when I was unsure. But then I look back at the same time and say I think it made me better at making decisions as well. So,
I'm not
I'm
afraid to
not.
fail either. I think that's a big thing probably of starting out a business, that knowing and expecting that there is going to be failures probably along the way somewhere.
Yeah, it kind of becomes part of the day to day, to say that it's always a possibility, and if it happens, it happens. And even if it does happen, it's never going to be so catastrophic that it stops you. I think you have to view it that way.
Yeah, making sure you learn from it, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you mentioned that you stock into local artisan shops, but you also go down the route of you're stocking into some of the bigger chains in terms of retail as well. What's it like? What's the benefits of dealing with local artisan produce, or local artisan shops? Sorry.
The benefit is, I suppose, you establish a relationship with the shop owners or the people working the shop, and I suppose you can get, like, it's an easier relationship to manage, because they can text you and say, oh, I need a delivery. You can call in. It's not as formal as one of the larger multiples. And like, one of our longest supplying stockists is Omani's Butchers in the English market. Like, we've
Oh
been
yeah.
supplying them forever, and like, I have a great relationship with them. Like, I get all the meat from them regularly, and Christmas and all that. So like, you develop a closer relationship like that.
And that
But
kind of probably stems on you might not be standing there, but that's another form of a farmer market for you, like, because the English market is an absolute fantastic food destination, but having the guys behind the stall upsell your product, or get the feedback each week, it's just another extension onto those farmers markets you did at the start.
it is totally. And like, the amount of people that have said to me, oh, I've seen your sauce on the butcher stall in the English market, is crazy. So like, that's another, it's another present, like, because I wouldn't be able to be in the English market on my own in a stall, but it's great to be in there in another way.
And you're not going to, the benefit of having the big chains, the big retailers, is the presence, the brand awareness. That's what's going to grow your brand bigger, like, obviously. But you're not going to have that same level of communication or on the ground approach, or on the ground upsell for your brand. You're not going to have that probably in the big retails, because you have how many staff running around trying to keep the place stocked. There's no one focusing on your aisle today, or
Totally. Yeah.
you're not going to have that in the big retail. So that is a huge benefit to any probably business starting out in food or
It
drink.
is definitely. And I think if you build up a nice base of independent stores, like, you'll be able to get a sales pattern and a sales history, so that when you talk to the bigger boys, when they say, how many cases are you selling a week, you're not saying, oh, I don't know. You say, well, in the busier stores, we sell X a week. And even those small things make you more, it adds more credibility to your proposal. Because like, when I'm talking to one of the bigger supermarkets, I'm just another number. I'm just another company.
Yeah.
You don't care really who I am, because so I suppose if you can, the more impressive you can be, or the more kind of information you have for them, the better.
I think in terms of marketing then and social media and that kind of world for what you're doing, it's great to get, a share on Instagram stories or a retweet or something from one of the big guys, because like that's, a reach that you could never probably get to unless you do go to a huge level on social. But the fact that you have, as you said, the guys No Mahoney's or any other the local producers you follow, they could be talking about you on their social media, and you're back and forth, and there's kind of a line of communication. Like, you're not going to get that with the bigger ones. So that's another benefit to the smaller artisans.
Totally, like you have that cumulative effect of like, if you have if a store in Dublin, Vice starts supplying a small store in Dublin, they put up on their stories, or three stores put up on their stories, you reach so many more people than you would by just putting up on your own, for example.
Yeah.
And yeah, the larger multiples are great, like as in we supply Super Value, Dunn's and Aldi, and if you get mentioned on Aldi's Twitter or Instagram, that's fantastic, because that's, I don't know, 100,000 people. Well, not everyone will see it, but it's putting it out there to 100,000 people, so it's less, it doesn't happen as often. But I think if you have the combined effect of the smaller stores and the bigger stores, then it all adds up.
And in terms of social media, how important is that for you?
Massive. I mean, like, the majority of all our advertising is done on social media. Like, when I say advertising, I mean paid ads would be on Facebook and Instagram. But all of, like, we post probably 4 or 5 times a week on Facebook and Instagram, just out generally to our followers. And it's the best way of staying in contact with people. It's the best way of informing them of your news and your updates. And it's a great way of interacting with them, because someone can literally have their dinner and say, oh, I had my sauce there, it was lovely. And like, that's the kind of stuff that never, ever get old, no matter how big or small you are. Like,
and I always think, no matter how much content you create or the most polished little graphic you make, someone taking a picture of something like that on their dinner table is, to me, is far more valuable than a graphic that you're going to create with a graphic designer to put out.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And I think, especially now with the way Instagram's gone, I think it's gone away from the very heavily stylized images. People, like, more and more just want to hear what other people are using on, or like, the picture quality may not be as good, but if someone sees, like, someone they know, or a normal, when I say normal, like not a big photographer or brand, they see a normal person using their food, that's more impactful than anything. Like,
it's just real. That's what it is. It's real.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And you mentioned you're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Have you ventured to TikTok?
I did initially, and then I found I actually ended up, I was spending like literally too much time scrolling, and I was like, okay, I have to get off this now. I know I probably should go back, because it obviously has massive potential, and it's amazing for sharing and reaching people. I was debating it there at the start of February, I between Reels and TikTok, but I'm going to spend time on Reels first and just getting accustomed to that.
I think they're very time consuming for content creation. Like, they take a lot of time. Like, and I think, it's speaking to you, like, that you look after the social media, it's great. But if you were working in a bigger corporation where there's maybe a little bit of a team looking after the marketing or social, and next thing there's this trend and craze around TikTok, and you're like, why are we not on TikTok? It's because it takes twice the amount of effort and time to make that stuff. But I also think it's important, and we've already mentioned, in terms of your audience, like, you have to find where your audience is. So, like, I would presume, looking at you and what social channels you have, you've kind of honed in, especially after a few years now, you kind of know what your audience is and what they want.
Yeah, we do. Like, in terms of our, like, we will have two main audiences. They're kind of like young professionals and young families. So that would be 22 to 45. Now, we do have people who are older than that and younger than that eating the sauces, but by and large, it's between those two. So they would be most active on Instagram, I would say. Like, we have a better following on Facebook, but not as much interaction. So Instagram seems to be where our customers or followers, whatever you want to call them, would be most. So that's kind of where we focus our attention.
And you like, I see some, like, you put out some great kind of animations every now and again, and you put out like kind of really good photos. Do you look after that kind of side of stuff yourself, or do you actually work with a team to do that?
I handle most of it myself. I do work with a media company in Dublin, who, like, they will create some content for me, especially in stories. they're quite good at stories and some posts as well. So we kind of use maybe existing stuff or a new stuff, or stuff that they create. So like, for example, now we went into Aldi yesterday for a special buy for 2 weeks. So like today there's a salad image going out that we've used before, and then on Sunday there's one from the company I work with, and then tomorrow will be one of the posts that I'll create. So it's a mixture of kind of everything.
Yeah, I think that's good as well.
I prefer having, like, I think the biggest thing, Dave, is if you hand over control, you have to make sure that the person fully understands who you are or what the page is about. Because I think you can very easily spot companies that are managing other companies' page and it doesn't look as well. So
I've talked to loads of people before about the benefits of, whether it's an agency or not, and I think there's, as you said, there's that fine line when you hand someone over your social media. It's like handing over the keys to your house or the keys to your business. It is a huge responsibility. They can make or break you in one tweet, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, totally. And if they don't get or understand what you've done in the past, it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. And it's a big thing to come in and, find, like, if you took on someone now tomorrow to kind of help you with social, to find, it would take time to find your style, and even get to know your audience, like, because you see the same names popping up,
Yeah.
Oh, Mary there is, every Sunday I get the post from Mary, keep an eye on her, make sure you interact with her. It does take time to get to know that. So taking on an agency to look after your marketing is always, it's not that it's a big no for me, but it's how they approach it. Do they actually get invested in your business? Because you have to have someone that's involved in your business, knows the day-to-day, knows the people, knows how it runs, and as already said, knows the style and the brand guidelines, I suppose, of how you operate. So it is a big commitment and a big risk and a chance to take.
It is, like, I think it comes down to, like, if you're working, for example, I work with Ping Media in Dublin, and I think it's just maybe one or two people, but it's good because it works for us. Whereas if we work with a bigger media agency, it might be a team of people, but like less care being given to Red Bull Chilli, which ultimately will dictate the quality of the stuff that goes up about you. Like,
and it's very important. We've seen a big trend, especially since COVID started. Now we've seen a big trend around the whole idea of support local, buy local. Have you seen that coming to fruition in front of you? Have you seen that kind of love and attention for small local brands since that started?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially when the lockdown started last year and in the summer when online sales were going up, definitely we saw an increase in that. And like, we at the start of the lockdown pushed out a load of recipes that we had, just to say, look, if anyone, because that was when people were at home first, it was like, look, here's a load of recipes. If you want to make them with our sauces, brilliant, or not, if you want to just use them for yourself. And I think like that, and like combined with people wanting to buy local and having to buy local as well because of not being able to get stuff and just wanting to stay local. So I think that definitely helped us. So we definitely saw like more interaction, more sales as a result.
And even before kind of COVID kicked in, we did see, you already mentioned the likes of Dunnes, Super Value, Aldi, all these. They're all really starting to get a good grasp of their support local programs. I suppose, like, Aldi has the Grow with Aldi, Super Value has the Food Academy. I think that was a fantastic move from the big retailers. So is that kind of how you approach some of these retailers, and do you come in with those in those avenues?
Yeah, it would be like, I mean, we, for example, the Aldi, when we got into the Grow with Aldi program 3 years ago and have been supplying them since then. And we got in again now for this June. And I think they want Irish suppliers. And I think the reason they want that is they want to support Irish suppliers, but also they see that like Irish customers want to buy Irish produce as well. So like if they can offer a better product offering, then it's a win-win all around. Like,
yeah, no, 100%. I think, as you said, people are seeking out those Irish brands now. It's and especially now when people, as you said, kind of get maybe back into the normal routine of shopping, whether they're still staying with their local producer or they go to the bigger retailers. I think that need and want for Irish products is still going to be there.
I think so. Like, and I think once people, for example, it doesn't matter what the product is, if the product is better, and it's made in Ireland, then I think most people would probably stay. Like, I like, unless obviously there's money and price comes into it, but like, by and large, if they're using whatever product and it's way better, they're probably going to stick with it. Like,
but as you said, I think then backing up what you do in the bottle, I suppose, backing up the quality with that value added content online in terms of recipes or just general information or showing other people enjoying it. It all ties in. It's all part of it. So that's great. But have you looked at outside of Ireland?
I have, like, we've supplied to the UAE before, to Abu Dhabi, Bahrain, and Kuwait. It didn't really work out. It was too soon. I think it was 5 years ago. It was too soon. At the time, it was brilliant, but like we weren't ready for it all. I suppose the big thing about supplying somewhere like that is it relies heavily on the Irish expat network, and we just wouldn't have been well known enough then. We have exported to Spain in the past. Again, it was decent, but what happens is the cost of getting the product to the country is so high, it just makes the product too expensive, and we've done a bit to the UK. Like, we're selling well now on Amazon.co.uk. It's going in the right direction. But I would like to start supplying some major British retailers like Waitrose or Tesco. And then we will down the line. I think it's part of the plan. It's just definitely more difficult now because of Brexit and any additional costs or issues. So I think for right now, for this year anyway, we'll continue to focus on Ireland and growing in Ireland. Like, we have a few special projects for this year, but next year, definitely down the line, like, the UK is the biggest market for us outside of Ireland.
And you mentioned there, like, Amazon and online sales. Did you have before, like, we saw a big shift when COVID struck, that a lot of businesses started selling e-commerce and started setting up their online platforms. Did you already have that up and running before COVID hit, or?
Yeah, we had an online shop set up, and we probably had it set up for about 2 or 3 years, but last year was by far and away our best year. So it was great to have had it set up and be ready to take orders, because I know lots of people were catching up, so we were set up for it. Yeah.
And how do you find dealing with the likes of Amazon and all that? Like, is it a growing market, or does it do you open the online orders and the floodgates open kind of a thing? Is it, you hear that kind of story a lot with Amazon and eBay and all those kind of platforms?
Yeah, we started working with eBay last year, and we worked with Amazon for about 2 years now. Amazon has been slow, but it's definitely picked up. Like last year and this year, it's definitely picking up more and more, and I anticipate that it will continue to do so. And eBay is slower then as well, like, because I used eBay once or twice in probably 7 years, so there is still a market for it in Ireland and beyond, especially abroad. But it's funny, like, when I first set up our own online shop, I was like, Jesus, this is going to be mental now. And I think the first week we had like one order, so it varies. And I think people, I thought, oh, just by being online, I'll get loads of orders. But like, the reality is you have to make it appealing to someone to buy online. Now, that was helped last year when the pandemic hit and people didn't want to go to the shops,
So I suppose it ties in a lot to, like, it's not just your on the ground marketing in terms of artisan stores and retailers. That has to be its own little kind of strategy, I suppose, itself, is how we want to push the online store. It's another avenue for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In terms of, so you've already mentioned the future, in terms of wanting to start looking at bigger and bigger projects. Anything else big coming down the line that we should expect from Rebel Chilli?
So we released a product there in October last year called the Korean Bbq. So it's our newest product, and I'm delighted with how it's gone. Like, the reaction has been amazing. Gold at Blossom here in October as well. So that was fantastic. So that will be going into Chopped. We supply every Chopped outlet in the country. Chopped is a salad bar, and that will be going into Chopped on their chicken soon. So that's something to look out for. And then we have one or two other kind of special projects, which one will probably be ready at the end of this year, one probably early next year. And other than that, I suppose just continue to roll out really good recipes. Going to try and get better at the Instagram reels as well. So fingers crossed.
And you mentioned there about the kind of brand partnerships with restaurants. I also seen recently that you done with a whiskey company. Like, how important is brand partnerships?
Yeah, that's actually what I meant to say, Dave. Massive. Like, they're massive. Like, I think, like, obviously it's good to be linked in with another business, but like, what I think people love is they love seeing two Irish businesses working together to create something special. Like, as you mentioned there, like, we did a thing with Bushmills last year where we made a hot sauce for them, and then we did cocktail masterclasses over Zoom, and they were fantastic, like great crack, but like really enjoyable as well to see people making the cocktails and enjoying the sauces. So I think brand partnerships are massive, like they're massively beneficial to us. Like I want to have at least 4 or 5 link ups with other Irish companies every year. Like we do with Carberry cracker as well in Christmas. So we put like a jar of our jalapeno and raspberry jam with 3 blocks of cheese and a little cracker, and it looks great. So like just having a few of them in the year, it just, one, it's a bit different, and I think both the customers of each brand or company will then buy into it, you know.
You're leveraging off each other's audiences as well.
Exactly, yeah, and it's great to work with other Irish businesses as well to create something different.
And you mentioned there about the Bláthnaigh Heron there a few minutes ago. So anyone doesn't know, it's probably up there with pretty much Irish biggest food and drink awards, really. Like, you know, there's a few of them, but Bláthnaigh Heron has got a great reputation, especially for customers when they walk in and see it on a packet.
Yeah.
How important is it to go and seek out? You see a lot of businesses that go into food and drink, especially starting out, and they don't go near any of the awards, you know, whether it's the Bláthnaigh or whether it's Great Taste. But how important is it actually to get those awards?
Very important. Like, and I think when we got our first Bláthnaigh in 2014, we were at the Dingle Food Festival and we won gold there for a red chili. And like, even the amount of people the next day that came up to us at the food festival and were like, "Oh, just give me the gold one." You know, give me the one that won gold. And it was amazing, because I was like, okay, people really buy into awards and their effect, especially because they're blind taste tested. So it is like purely based on what people think. So they're very, very, very beneficial. Like even having it on the Korean now as well is great, because if it's on the shelf, people can see the award sticker and it's just like an endorsement already. You know, lots of people see that and just say, "Oh, it must be a good product." Like I do that myself. If I see a cheese or whatever with a Bláthnaigh, like,
it has that bit of brand recognition already.
It does, yeah, and it just makes, I suppose, it either makes them want to buy it even more, or makes the sale a bit easier if someone's, you know, on the edge.
Brilliant. I just want to say thanks very much. Some great nuggets of information in there. Most importantly, if people want to find you, where can they go and check out or purchase the sauces themselves? Yeah,
so on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, we're at Rebel Chilli, 2 L's in Chilli, and we are also on...
Do you have a lot of issues with that, do you?
Yeah, some. And then rebelchilli.com is our website, and you can get all our products on there if you want to order. And we're stocked in Dunn's, Aldi, Super Value, and Shops as well, and lots of independent stores as well.
Brilliant. Paul, thanks very much, and continue success for the future.
Okay, thanks Dave. Cheers.